Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to have you with us today at this AES event, the Platinum Artist Panel.
So I beseech you, Mr. Chess, to let me sleep inside your bed. And would you sleep too? Would you sleep too?
Run, run, baby, don't drop the ball, because I hate to see you hit the wall. Come on now, let's see who's the first to fall, because the winner takes all. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're a worthy adversary, but honey, I play for keeps. You better be in it to win it if you're playing with me. You got to. Every 20 seconds, someone's pounding someone down. Every 30 more, a liar's born.
Well, the progress of an artist, at least with these people up here on stage and their relationships with these distinguished engineer producers, it all sounds so simple. Isn't that wonderful? So, but what happens with rejection? And we'll start with Jonatha. That must have to face that sometimes.
Yes, I was dropped 3 times from 3 major labels, so that kind of sucked. Why don't I just keep doing this myself? And sure enough, Bob and I made Steady Pull, my first studio record on Bad Dog Records, and we had a really good run with it. We got onto the Letterman show, we did Conan, we, I don't know, sold 90 or 100,000 records. We had major label promo people calling us to say, how the hell are you doing this? We had a top 5 song with Linger at AAA radio. So, you know, yeah, it really sucked, and I did cry in my soup for, you know, 2 weeks, but at some point it's like, all right, nothing changed. I can do this just as well.
I was mixing something for Tears for Fears for Roland Orzabal, and it was a song called Sowing the Seeds of Love. And I spent like a day, it took a day just to get all the tracks to come up on the console. And I spent a day working on it. And Roland came in, you know, I thought it sounded pretty good actually. And Roland comes in and listens to it and goes, you know, there's absolutely nothing in that mix that makes any sense to me at all that I can relate to in any way. It's like, oops, okay. You know? Okay, well, you want to point me in the right direction? So he gave me some hints, and I worked on it for another hour, and he came in and he goes, no. That's, I go, okay, well, what do you want to do? He goes, and he was fantastic. He was like, well, let's mix another song. And so we mixed Woman in Chains, which came out great, and was on the album, and was another song in the album. And, you know, you just kind of go, okay, well, let's move on.
You do have these expectations. Like when you get nominated for your first Grammy, you're like, great, this should make it easier for me to get booked on a Conan or Letterman. This is it. And you come back home after the big event, and you're right back where you were, and you're still hustling, and you're still, you know, playing the clubs and passing the tip bucket and doing what you got to do. And that's how you know that you love it, because you still show up.
Just like, okay, you get rejected, and then that forces you to think out of the box and say, okay, well, this thing's an impasse, and you know, how do I get around it, or what do I do? Which is exactly the energy that started the label that Maiysha's record came out on, and you know, when you know, we've all, even the Kevin Killens and the Bob Clearmountains of the world have had rejections from major labels, and I've certainly had, you know, a stack of them. And I think that just says, you know, let's find another way to do this.
You know, you have to kind of like realize, well, if you have certain artistic things that you want to accomplish and they are outside of the mainstream, you know, you kind of can't have your cake and eat it too. And that was like the lesson I had to learn. And it was a good lesson because, you know, kind of sticking to my artistic guns, that kind of led me to a whole other genre, which was, you know, theater. And had I continued to have just instant, huge amounts of success as a singer-songwriter, I never would have been compelled to kind of go into this other world.
You know, there's a great George Martin quote that he gave years ago, and somebody asked him, you know, other than the Beatles and I think that group America, you know, why he always worked with an artist just once, and he goes, well, on the first record, I'm George Martin, and then on the second record, I'm just plain old George. And I think, you know, in a lot of ways, you know, other than these long-term relationships that you have, people have this impression of you, oh, because you worked on such and such a record, that you must be and not godlike, but I mean, you're bringing something much more to bear on the process, where you realize when you're in the project itself, it is a true collaboration. It's the musicians, it's the studio, it's the artist, it's the song, it's that whole, you know, combination of events that make the record what it is. And so then to ascribe a particular thing to that one particular person is not necessarily accurate, and so therefore there's going to be disappointment. But at the same time, there's also joy.
It appears, it's obvious that if you want to succeed and survive and continue in your career in this industry, you better be well anchored and sure of yourself in the face of both success and the occasional failure, even though it may not really be failure. You know, you have to have belief in yourself, first of all. Let's give a big round of applause to our group.